Welcome, everybody, and welcome to Tech Talk Friday. Yes, we're back again, and we love to have you. And wherever you're streaming us from, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, we're glad to have you on this Friday. If you're Malaysian, well, we're still in lockdown. Hope you're safe at home. If you're viewing from anywhere else around the world, thank you for joining us. I know timing differences and all that, but we love to have you. Now, Tech Talk Friday is all about, like the title says, tech. We're speaking about the world of tech, what's happening in it, and from a Malaysian context, and perhaps what's going to do for us globally. So, how does the show work? We are going to have, of course, when we start, we're going to actually explore some news and happenings around the world of tech. And then we're going to have two guests today that are going to talk about various topics and ensure that you are part of the conversation. Yeah, I'm going to repeat this over and over again until everybody gets it, that you are a big part of this conversation. We're streaming live on social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, and also YouTube. So use the comment area to actually ask your questions, or even if you have a thought or a feedback, just put it down there and we will bring it up. We'll bring it up during the conversation and we'll ask our guests the questions that you have or present them with the feedback or the thought that you have. Now, Tech Talk Friday is brought to you by Necole. So for those of y'all who actually want to get yourself learning, growing yourself, whether it's a change of career or if you're just preparing yourself for the future, Necole is a learning experience platform which you should have right now. So go over to Necole.app, and if you see the scroll it down below, there's a promo code there, Roshan T Lee 30, for you to get a 30% discount right now if you go on to Necole.app and subscribe. All right, so now onto the show. And if you can see, last week my equal host was wearing some really nice clothing. Today you're going to see like he's after some choice conversations with his wife. Ladies and gentlemen, Karamjit Singh, the wise man on the mountain, is back. But Karam, last week I got a bit jealous, so this week I decided to wear something super bright, which is my super neon yellow shirt, so that I can.
I should have brought my shades. I got no shades here. I need to wear shades.
Yeah, I'm in a combo. Shiny disposition, shiny head. Right, and there's someone else who's going to come in as well with this same combination. But Karam,
wow.
Right, let's get to this. Today,
I should have sent Rafiza some shades also, man. Both of us need to protect ourselves from the shining glare of the superstars.
You never know. Once we call them on, they're going to wear their shades and come on also. Who knows? But anyway, Karam this week decided to be very pointed when I asked him, like, what are we going to talk about on Digital News Asia's DNA's Pick of the Week? He said, I only one story, and I want to talk about this one story only. And this story is Merchant Trade Lintra Max partnership to provide cashless ecosystem to Malaysian plantations. Actually, this is pretty interesting considering our country is actually a country which is built on agriculture and is built on a lot of plantations. Yep. You heard about Felda, and if you drive even out of like the city area, you'll see huge plantations, and these are in remote spaces, right? And you know, we want to try to get tech to them. So what's the story about, Kara?
So look, I obviously the story of the week is actually Naluri, right? But since we're gonna have the man himself, sharing his experiences and observations, so I did not highlight that. But that's clearly the story of the week for this week. But I picked this because this is one of those stories that will definitely be under everyone's radar, right? It would fall under your radar because it's not a sexy story, but it just shows how our digital economy is gradually progressing at a pretty nice clip, okay? So here you have a company that provides actually software or automation software to plantations, okay? They've been quietly doing the work, very unglamorous, not sexy, right? And this is Lintra Max. And of course, they call themselves the leading provider, right? Oil palm plantation management solutions. But they've partnered with Merchant Trade, and Merchant Trade is a traditional company offering remittance services, and they offer also their VoIP offering mobile services. Okay, those are really traditional businesses, and Merchant Trade, and under the leadership of let me see the CEO's name. Instead of saying what I call him, Ramasamy Viran, has disrupted himself to say that I need to disrupt myself and make myself a digital company, or at least more digital, not pure digital. Because if I don't disrupt myself, somebody's going to disrupt me. Yeah. So using that ethos, he has slowly been introducing more and more digital services. And here he is now. Of course, they've got a service which is actually a remittance service, but they've added a bit of a wallet component to it also. But it's really basically a remittance services. And voila, you want to talk about remittance services. Probably the plantation sector has the most number of potential customers who use a remittance service, correct? So this is a very beautiful partnership between two organizations, and they're going to now get this service out to all the workers who are in the plantations, which are many in rural areas. And by the way, I have a friend who used to go to a plantation which was literally on the border of the Kalimantan border, right? Malaysia and Kalimantan in the island of Borneo. And he said some of the migrant workers would drive across the border at night to sleep in their homes, wherever they were, and then come back the next day. So you want to talk about cowboy towns. Some of our plantations, are literally in cowboy territory. But anyway, this is a great service for them. And these two people have come together. You can read about it on DNA, but it just shows you how there's unsexy work going on. But at the end of the day, it moves the needle to how Malaysians and in this case, of course, the target is mostly non-Malaysians, right? Just adopting the digital economy.
Yep, true. And unsexy story or not, but it's important story, right? Because it moves the engines of economy.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
go over to Digital News Asia and find out about this. And if you have some stakes, who knows, in plantations, and if this is something that could actually assist you, here you go. There's some really great in the world of tech happening in the world of plantations as well. So great on that story. So we have only got one. Now we're going to move on to bring on our guests. Karam has already alluded to this story. It's actually sort of the main story of the week. But again, I'm going to remind everybody, if you're watching us from LinkedIn, from Facebook, from YouTube, use that comment area. You've got a question, you've got a thought, you've got a feedback, put it there because we want to bring it up. We want to get that conversation going. It's only not us, it's you as well. So let's bring the man of the hour. It is the question of what is going to happen next to this guy after raising, Karam, I'm right, US 5 million, right?
Yep. And even more significant,
million.
it's I was told, and I think, of course, I think Azran cannot confirm, but I was told it's in the region of 25 million US dollar valuation, which is about 120 million ringgit. So, whether that's a low ball figure on the high, I'm not sure, but congratulations. Anyway, I think safely to say that he has crossed 100 million ringgit in valuation. And, when you say what's next, anyone who knows Azran knows that he only operates in one gear, which is fifth gear. Being an ultra marathon runner, your triathlon, athlete and all, he only needs to go in one speed. So it's exciting to have him here.
And for everybody out there who don't know who Azran Osman-Rani is, he's the CEO and co-founder of Naluri. All right.
Right.
We didn't get to do the introduction properly, and he appeared already.
No. So really, Azran, look, when you say what's next, obviously it's about further execution, right? Executing relentlessly and fiercely, right? And people, I think people want to know about that. I hope we get some questions in for you also. So you've got a nice war chest now. It may not be enough for acquisitions, I don't know. So I would like to ask you about that. But in terms of further executing now, talk about Malaysia, where else there's opportunity, right? And then maybe you can go to Singapore and Indonesia, which you are already there. I think even if the entire money was just to further execute Indonesia and Singapore, more than enough for you and to make your shareholders happy and to build your valuation further for the next round. So, let's talk about that first.
Well, actually, for me, it is about how do we truly build the field of digital therapeutics in Southeast Asia. And why is digital therapeutics different from general digital health? So therapeutics basically means that the software either supplements or sometimes substitutes traditional therapy for various clinical conditions, right? And in our case, we focus on both what we call metabolic conditions, which is either obesity, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and mental health, depression, anxiety, and stress, because there's a lot of overlap there. So the goal ultimately is, how do we get doctors, for example, to say, hey, this is a viable supplement or a substitute to traditional therapies for my patients who have these conditions? How do we get insurers to say, hey, this is a standard reimbursable? Because if you've got those conditions, we believe Naluri has proven efficacy to reduce or improve your health and therefore reduce our future medical claims costs. That is what we want to get to, and that's where all that capital is going to go, right? And that's why you see us investing in clinical research, so that there is real evidence that ultimately both the medical and insurance fraternity sees this as a viable or a new addition to their arsenal of available therapies for these conditions.
Yeah, wow, interesting. So when you mentioned, go to Singapore and Indonesia, what's going on there? Because seems like there's not, you've already been in there close to a year at least, right? And of course, Indonesia is the crazy market. So talk about those two. And then when you talk about clinical studies, I was intrigued that you are doing it actually in Europe. And of course, Europe is a bigger market. You can talk about why Europe, and then, but do Indonesia and Singapore first, and then talk about why you decided to fund a clinical study in Europe. Yeah.
Sure. Well, again, right, the thing about, trying to have these ambitions is scale matters, right? If you're going to attract the capital that you need to really, grow big, people are going to say, if you're focused only on Malaysia, it's too small of a market. So we really need to be able to show that we can serve a large enough base, right? And then obviously, when you think about going outside, Singapore and Indonesia makes the most logical sense because of language and cultural familiarity. And of course, with Indonesia, you've got the sheer size of that domestic market, right? And that's why after that, phase 2 for us is Thailand and the Philippines in terms of the markets that we want to serve. Now, also when it comes to regional expansion, first, it is hard, right? Like I tried it with AirAsia X, I tried it with iFlix. Going into a new country is really hard. And going into a new market cold is even harder. So for us, what we're doing is we're saying our current employers, our current insurance clients here in Malaysia who are happy with the work that we do, they introduce us to their affiliates in Singapore, Indonesia, and now they're introducing us to our affiliates in Thailand and Philippines. So it's easier to go into a new market where, let's say, you've got your first set of clients that you can get started, right? Rather than trying to knock on doors and building a client base. So that's our approach to international expansion. Okay. Now, with respect to Europe, right? For me, the big thing is today there aren't any standards for digital therapeutics in Southeast Asia, not even in Singapore, right?
Wow, interesting.
And where the field is heading, right? You can see software applications who are either focused on the US, where they're getting FDA approval, and FDA has already approved digital therapeutics programs or software solutions in the US. And likewise in Europe, it is with getting an European CE mark. Okay. Because those standards are established for us, right? We want to be able to shape those regulatory standards, to be able to have discussions with health regulatory authorities in these countries in Southeast Asia. And it's better to then have a reference point, right? So if we say, look, we've done the clinical trials, we've gotten a certain certification or standard in an established market, it's easier for them to use that as a starting point than to sit down and expect them to come up with a standard from scratch, which would have taken, or which we would expect to take a longer time. And that's why between Europe and the US, frankly, it's a matter of, you got to pick one, because trying to do two at the same time, we have a little resource, and Europe's just a little bit closer and a little bit more familiar.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I'm surprised that no other similar companies like yours are trying to shape the conversation or the standards for Europe also that you have gone in. But I am assuming there are, right? Just that you
there are a handful. There are a handful, but it's a very specialized field within digital health. You find most people are still doing telemedicine platforms and delivery and all of that, right? But how do we actually build that software? And that's why I guess, we're very thankful for Rafiza and Cradle to provide us that Accelerate grant to build deep tech so that the software can actually lead to meaningful clinical quality improvements in health.
Wow. Okay. Cool. You talk about people still offering, telemedicine online, right? Telehealth. Right. Somebody was telling me that in March that they were going to launch their telemedicine platform this month. So I WhatsApp, it's a doctor. I say, hey, are you launched already? He hasn't answered yet. But I was struck by the fact that it's still telemedicine and not a bit deeper, right? Because COVID has opened a whole can of worms and really. Mental health has totally gone mainstream, right? In the US, 1 in 4 people apparently have some mental health problem. Of course, US is crazy, lah. But I'm wondering in Malaysia or in Southeast Asia, and actually, I don't know whether it's from one of your articles, I saw a number that totally shocked me. Hey, is it really that bad or that deep in this region also? Which is fantastic for you. I mean, COVID is a horrible, horrible thing, but it has unearthed maybe and sharpened a reality that was always bubbling under the surface, maybe, right?
Yeah. It's very interesting because when we first started in 2017 and we wanted to start to talk to insurers and employers about mental health, there wasn't a lot of interest.
Yeah, of
And
course.
therefore, when we focused on diabetes and obesity and hypertension, that they were worried about because that represents over 50% of all their medical claims.
Oh, okay.
And so, but to address diabetes and hypertension and obesity, the way we do it is to say, how do we provide someone with the psychological support to address the underlying motivations and worries and, resilience that you need to change your lifestyle, to eat healthier, to exercise more, right? You can't just tell them what to do. You got to get to do it. So thus the psychological support. So really, diabetes and hypertension initially was our Trojan horse to sneak in psychological support to these organizations. But suddenly with COVID, it became front and center, right?
Yep.
We had airlines and banks and telcos saying, we want a mental health focused support for our organizations.
Yep.
And that's really changed the game in the last 2 years pre-COVID.
No, I mean, it has changed again, and I'm kind of excited to see how you will be able to gain further traction and your next round, because I would expect your next round to be a lot more meaningful than this, right? And to put you really on a global level, right? Your next round, when you announce, and you've been kind enough to give DNA first, you probably go to TechCrunch and DNA at the same time. So the next round should be at that level. Yeah, we're all rooting for you. But okay, aside from that, what keeps you up at night, Azran, with execution? Is it that your people are not moving the way you want to, or you're worried about a competitor who raise a lot and they may come in or do something, or what are you worried about? Or established players saying we better offer this ourselves now?
Yeah, look, as a founder, first of all, we are born to be anxious and we're born to worry about everything, right? But ultimately, it's about sieving through all the different worries and picking the ones that you can actually act on, right? And so, for example, in our case, clearly, when it comes to scale, it is how do we pick the right teams in Indonesia, in Singapore, in Thailand, and Philippines? And the biggest concern for us was that we can't travel. Right. It used to be pre-COVID, like I was on the plane to Indonesia, to Singapore, Jeremy, my co-founder, doing the same. But now we can't. Right. And interestingly, that was also the biggest issue with the fundraising, right? Like, how do you actually pitch to international investors when you can't actually meet them in person? And I'm quite, for me, at least 4 of my investors in this new round, I've never met them in person, including my lead investor.
Wow.
Never met them in person.
Unbelievable. But it shows how barriers have broken down, right? And people have started challenging their own perceptions and have come to accept a whether you call it new normal or next normal, but it's or somebody says never normal. So whatever it is one of you. But the word normal is not normal anymore, that's for sure, right?
Yes.
No, but it's amazing, and the fact. But also, look, you actually went through a hard time. Also, it took still someone of your caliber and what you're doing. It still took you 9 months, and I'm totally surprised why it took you that long. And you were honest enough, candid enough to admit that some lead investors also fell by the wayside. Was it that they got cold feet? Why? Because they couldn't see you and assess you and get a feel for you. That would be punishing, right? My God, your lead investor suddenly drop off, and seems like it happened more than once. So the mental tenacity you need to say, guys, doesn't matter. This just brings us to a closer level to the next. Yes, I don't know. How did you deal with that? Were you a big user of your own app, and then you needed some mental stress relief?
Wow. It was. There were a lot of extremely frustrating moments when you thought you were close to a deal. For example, there was one VC where we went through, I think, 4 rounds with the investment committee, rare, right? To kind of go through there.
Deep.
And actually, ultimately, they did make an offer, but it was at a valuation that was, let's just say, significantly lower than what we closed at, right? And so to then say, look, you know what, I'm going to give up the bird in hand and pursue the 2 birds in the bush, that's a tough call to make, right? Especially when clock's ticking, you only have a few months of runway, and if you don't get those birds in the bush, game over. So that was freaky.
Wow. So incredibly gutsy, man, right? So I think that takes a certain level of being a bit crazy also, I think, right? And you definitely have that craziness.
I guess so, man.
I've got to ask this question.
Sure.
Azran. So this probably has got to do with the product itself and your team, right? Because you were just mentioning about mental health, and some things that you said was so familiar to me, because I'm a product owner as well, and I'm trying to bring a product to the market, and I'm going through the same paces as you're going through. Some of the things you mentioned about not meeting the person in person, you don't really get to know them as you used to, and you're taking this gut choice of, okay, if I'm going to partner with somebody, let's say in Indonesia, I'm meeting them only on virtual, like Zoom or something like that, and then I'm making a choice. And it's not only you, right? It trickles down to the rest of your team. So my question to you is, the app or the service that you have, I'm pretty sure your team is using it as well. Have you seen that help your team? Because that's a marker of whether it's really going to help everybody else.
Yeah, so in fact, we recently had a town hall. We do our monthly town halls, and we talked about whether or not we're creating enough psychological safety. And part of that is not only encouraging our own team members to use our own full-time in-house psychologists, which they do, but actually we even worked with another service provider. So we actually used, you can call it like a competitive product, because we wanted to give our employees options that in case they felt, if I use someone from within the company, am I truly safe in terms of what I can open up and it won't go to Azran, right? And so we actually created another option, because creating that psychological safety in today's time is so paramount.
Psychological safety, and maybe just one last one before we kind of need to get our next guest on.
No, I got one more question for.
Oh, you got one more question. You're great. Okay, so I'll ask this one question, then Karam will go. See, we're fighting to ask you questions right now. So this term psychological safety, because I'm really drawn to what you guys are doing. This whole for employees, mental health for employees, because it is very crucial right now. We can see it, we feel it. So what is this term psychological safety, and why is it so important?
Well, first of all, maybe the best way is, remember how bosses used to tell me, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with only a solution. But the problem with that, right, if you set that standard, you're not going to get problems being surfaced to you, right? And so psychological safety is when you can bring up problems. Either, look, boss, I'm not cut out to do it. I don't think I'm going to hit the deadline, right? Better to have it flagged earlier so that we can do it, rather than employees feeling so afraid they just keep quiet. That is the worst thing. And that is why psychological safety is so crucial for performance, right? But you need to create that space where employees feel, I need to be able to put up my hand and not feel judged when I don't think I can perform. I'm feeling overwhelmed, right? And so that is why that's important. And that's why it's actually beyond just an app. Naluri is more than an app, but sometimes we have to work with our clients to create even training programs to inculcate kind of almost like psychological first aid skills amongst employees so that they can help each other.
And I think that's very important statement you said that, and it's something that I'm glad I practice with my team as well, where I say this, that if you do not tell me what your problem is, I don't know how to help you. So that's better you tell me than we keep it under the surface and nobody wins in the end of the day.
That's right.
And Karam, you got one last question, right?
Yeah. So, actually, with your track record and being in the corporate world before, right, and then with the startup with iFlix, you have access to a lot of talent. So, I'm assuming that actually talent wouldn't be a challenge for you. I'm sure when the news went out that you've raised 5 million, suddenly a lot of your ex-colleagues would have been messaging you and say, bro, I'm available if you need help and all, right? I'm sure you're not. I mean, imagine when you raise 100 million now. Okay?
Sure.
So, but so I assume actually getting access to talent is not a problem, but whether you can afford them or whether it's the right fit, or actually now people probably want equity, so you don't have to put in all hard cash, right? You can give them a combination. So I'm just feeling that I think I'm putting it to you that I don't think getting the right talent is a challenge for you now at this level that you've built your company. Would I be accurate to say that, or you think it's still an issue?
It is better, obviously, than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
but, we have to compete with the likes of Grab and Carson, who have even bigger war chests, right? Like for tech talent, for product talent, for BD talent. It is still incredibly tough.
Wow. Okay. So one more thing, when you mentioned Grab, I was actually talking to somebody yesterday who was former senior leadership in Grab, and the person said that they have a system because it's digital, right? So like by 5 a.m. in the morning, there will be an auto-generated email to say what happened during the last 24 hours, and then first thing in the morning, they huddle with Anthony. Is that Anthony would have would go by he would have 18 different metrics to go through with them. And you being your Accenture, McKinsey background, how metrics driven are you? And is that really the best bar by which to judge everyone? Because it's so transparent, the data won't lie.
Yeah, so this is interesting. I think Jeremy, my co-founder, is probably more metrics driven than me. I think I'm more intuitive.
Really?
I do go more by gut.
Wow, interesting. So, but in terms of metrics, then do you have like a daily thing, or because you're not consumer based, so maybe not daily? Is it every 2 weeks or every month? Because you're
every day.
Right?
Every day there's a pop up on our Slack channel summarizing the data from the last day for sure.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. So
Karam is digging, trying to find out what you measure people by. Karam, it's not all about metrics.
Not measure, and not people, but the business, right? Because it's ultimately a business engagement.
Absolutely.
Your sales lead.
Yeah.
You close something or a lead that was hot suddenly became cold. Why? And then maybe I'm going to get on phone and call them to understand why, so we prepare better. All these are valuable to you. But would you say also, last question, just that any startup that wants to be successful, they have to be very data driven also. Let the data guide you as far as possible.
Yeah, and especially to do that early on, because if you set the right infrastructure, you can build on that. But if you kind of skip and wing it, right? Once you're big, you suddenly realize your whole data system is in a mess. Wow. So doing that early is so important, even when you don't think that you need. I know everyone; it's all in front of me, but you have to create that culture, that data lake, the infrastructure from day one almost.
Wow.
I agree. That's something that's very important right there. Like, you think early days where I've got bigger problems than this, but this problem is going to become big at one point, right?
And it's a gold mine for you. It's not, nobody can ever think of that being a problem, right? Your data is gold mine.
Yep. All right. Thanks so much, Azran. And also, while you were talking, Roshan was jumping in. Roshan
was heckling me. Please, producer, do not share his comments anymore. Okay?
Well, Roshan being Roshan, he will continue to comment, and that's great to have. But I want to also remind everyone, like how we have Azran here, we're going to have him again at the very end of the show. But if you have any questions from anything you're hearing from our guests, like Azran and the next person who's coming up, you want to ask them something, this is your perfect opportunity to ask them, because these are really busy people. They are actually out there, like Azran himself. He's out there now trying to get this app out to people and also try to improve mental health in employees. He's got a mission.
Working on the next round.
Exactly. And like Karam said, he's always on fifth gear. So, you gotta, this is the one time he's on third gear here just talking to us. You might want to catch him now. All right. Thanks, Azran. We'll catch you in a bit. And remember, go over to naluri.life if you want to find out more about what Naluri is doing. All right. Thanks, Azran. We'll have you again at the end of the show. Now, so we talked about Azran and his raising of $5 million, right? So
but he also credited Cradle. So wonderful of Azran to acknowledge Cradle. He acknowledged MDEC also gain. I think he acknowledged MTDC and Magic, right? So wonderful.
All right. So I think with that mention of Cradle, it's good to have someone from Cradle. And who best to have than the group CEO of Cradle Fund herself. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have on Rafiza Ghazali, who group CEO of Cradle Fund. Rafiza is appearing.
Hi, everyone. Should I put on my glasses? Should I put on my shades?
Yes, please. I'm going to go and look for my shades also, man. Definitely.
Yeah, because when Karamjit mentioned that, I should be having my shades, so, I happen to have one next to me. So, yeah.
This is now heckling me. I know.
No. It's Friday night and we're stuck at home, okay? So, give us some credit.
Boleh. But thanks for joining us, Rafiza.
No, have it on throughout the show. No problem, man.
You look cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so good, Rafiza. Thanks for being on the show. And so for everyone listening, Rafiza did not want to get any questions in advance from me, and I was quite struck by that. Why? Because people always want to get at least one or two questions ahead so they prepare. She didn't want any questions at all, and I was quite intrigued by that. But I was also intrigued, Rafiza, with your comment that you made when you were on the KL Startup Summit. Okay. And during that panel session with Aaron Sarma and Gopi, and I think maybe one other person, I apologize if I missed out on one other name, you actually questioned whether we do need to be in this rush to have so many startups. You said then, how are they going to sustain themselves, right? Is there enough business for them? And I thought, as the CEO of a government agency, where the government, of course, the government is always nervous, no matter which government of the day it is, they want to show more. We're doing more and more. Yeah, let's have more. And here you are, giving a very practical comment, but may not have made you more popular with the ministry or the minister, right? Hey, what do you mean? We want more. So what compelled you to say that, right? First of all, and then we'll talk about your 1 year experience so far in Cradle. And of course, this is only part of your observation also, right?
Yeah. No, the reason why I say that is because, when companies come to us to do funding, so we disperse grants based on milestones. So i.e. meet certain subscriptions, certain revenues. And all of us know during the pandemic, and we've got some that come to us, either look for extension or, change their model slightly. So, and, I come from a finance background. I did economics. I'm not so sure how fast, no matter how much money we pumped in, the economy is going to grow to pre-COVID, right? So, and we all know a lot of startups were built during that, when everyone have got money to spend. When people are worried about their jobs, like who's going to spend? Because at the end of the day, the startups are built to serve the customers. Do we have enough customers? That's my main question. I don't have an answer. I'm not saying that 5,000 is not unachievable, but I think there needs to be some sort of a step back. Hey, can we support these 5,000 startups? Because, you don't want to be pumping in money and then building startups just for the sake of reaching the number. And I'm just being cautious. Me being a finance person, I'm always like, what's the commercial value? What's the commercial value? But like I said, I'm not saying that 5,000 is not the number. For all we probably need 7,000. But it's just that I haven't seen that analysis yet.
And maybe
Karam, maybe I can add a question at this. Is it a case of maybe the identification of the retentive market or the market that could be there is the problem? Because now in this case where we're going through a pandemic, right, the market is shifting, user needs are shifting, the buying power may be there, but it's going in a different direction. Is it because the understanding is not there, or is it because it's shifting so fast that you may have startups mushrooming, but are they going or serving the right customer base?
Or are they serving the same customer? So you have 10 startups serving the same population, because this is not ideally they should go scale, right? They should go regional, but everyone knows for the next 1 or 2 years it's still going to be tough. So that's, we've seen a lot of startups comes to us, and then how different are you from 7 other startups that came to pitch to us over the last 2 weeks? How could they survive? What's their differentiating factor that to make sure that, because we don't want to build startups for the sake of building startups, yes, we see failures, we see zero startups and stuff like that, but it's just that at the end of the day, we are the caretaker of the government's money. We just want to make sure that they're just not there, just we're not a training ground for startups,
Right.
Okay. So I think some entrepreneurs may take issue with that. We're not a training ground, but you're supposed to just support them as much as they can, because being an entrepreneur is incredibly difficult, right? I mean, it's so risky to go out and say, I want to do something, so whatever. And Cradle has always been the first stop for so many, even Grab, way back then. And I remember them telling me, so the support from Cradle was incredible. Even though it was a small amount back then, you're probably giving out 150,000. But when you're small, and in 2013, 14, that's a lot of money for a startup. It actually still is now, like in Malaysian sense. So I think people just want that support, and of course not blindly, but you still have your criteria. But people want to be able to see you to give out more grants. But your budget has shrunk, right? And then a portion of it now has been carved out because for this deep tech. And I tell you, some of the people say that deep tech has been done before, Rafiza, and they're adamant that focusing on deep tech and carving out your budget. If it's a fresh budget, then no issues. But it's carved out from your existing budget and giving deep tech, because then when you give somebody $1 million or 2 million for deep tech, then of course they need to take the product to the customer, and the customers, at that level they probably have choice. And there is still this mental barrier. Can I trust a Malaysian company to do this solution for me? I'll go to somebody else, right? And people are adamant to say that Malaysian companies still don't want to support or give confidence or try out a Malaysian solution. So, and they feel that these guys in your deep tech cluster are going to come up against that wall. And then this money would have been wasted. The intention is good, but they say, look at what happened before it failed. Are you sure something has changed on the ground that it can change now? I'm not sure, but we have gone ahead with it. I just hope that if after a year of doing this, right, people who've raised the funding, you give a report card of how they've done, whether they've been able to penetrate the market or not, and identify the reasons why. If it's still this barrier that Malaysian companies don't want to trust our startups, then it means that we have not moved from 10 years ago from moving, right? And then what can we do to break the barrier, to chip away at it? Because if we're not honest with our failures, then we're not going to succeed. And for me, failure is totally okay. It's part and parcel of this startup landscape, right? And to have 5,000 startups, I think it's not an issue. Because if most of them fail, never mind. What happens is that when somebody fails, he or she will have picked up invaluable experience about why they fail. Then you go and join someone else like Naluri or like La Pasa, right? Who've managed to fight and claw themselves above the rest. So they are there waiting to hire the good people. You've got something extra to bring to the table. Failure is definitely not a negative. And a lot of startups, Rafiza, who fail, have gone on to the corporate world. They appreciate what they've done, right? Lessons, bring that to the table for me. So I think one part of me saying too many is not good like you, but another part saying no, let as many mushroom as possible, because you cannot force the entrepreneur, right? They're not being given money to start. They're being given money at maybe after 8 months or 10 months of starting on your own. And that's already a good, to show your persistence and your grit, right? Hey, I survived this long on my own. I would love the 150,000. You look at them, what they're doing. You can disagree with me, right? Say this Bayflow is talking nonsense, but we want to create that velocity or so for a country of 33 million, create that velocity, and people say, hey, this is the average way to go. And failure starts getting accepted. Then so many fail that it's not a negative on you. Right now, some still are embarrassed. Even Patrick Grove, right? He's half Australian, half Malaysian. I want to do a story on him. Hey, Patrick, can I talk about what led to a failure of iFlix? Yeah, no lah, Karam, no need lah. There's no story there. And I'm thinking, shit, man. The perception of failure is still embarrassing for people, which is not good, right? We should get rid of this thing that failure is a bad thing.
So Rafiza, so you can see Karam is really fired up with this whole thing. Maybe do you disagree with Karam?
Yeah. Please disagree with me. I love it.
No, I mean, to me, failure is part of a puzzle, but it's just that my only concern is that I'm not again. I'm not saying that 5,000 is correct or not correct. It's just that is our economy can sustain that?
I would challenge you that's not the question to ask. That is a very old mentality. Your finance background say no. Welcome as many people as possible. You make yourself available to as many entrepreneurs as possible. If there's one knock against you, is that you're not so easily accessible. So you got to open up. So people are, you got half an hour slots for anyone, and you may have heard something for the 15th time, and you can be honest. Hey, bro or sister, I've been hearing it for 14 times before you. You're in trouble if this is your pitch, right? Be honest with people, because it's on one-to-one. So you got to make yourself more accessible. But a question for you now is that after 1 year, please tell us, because Azran is waiting, but we still got time. What have you learned that works, and what have you learned that has challenged your own perception of what you think would have worked, but it doesn't, and what seems to work? So that's many questions layered into one, so you can unpack it slowly.
I actually got one more additional layer to that, but let's answer that first before I add on the layers.
Okay, it's okay, guys. It's Friday night, and just bring it up. Yeah,
bring it on, man. Okay. Bring it on. There you go. Rafiza says, bring it on.
Nigesh, what's your question? Perhaps I could answer.
Yeah. So along the lines of what Karam is saying, because he's asking about what you've learned over time, right? And what works, what doesn't work. So perhaps like going into the very data-driven side of yourself, being a finance person and all that, I'm pretty sure what guides your gut to sort of question whether we need this many startups is a threshold number, right? So a success to failure threshold number, like for the country, what would be a good success threshold number that ensures that, yes, the economy moves forward because these startups are actually turning the engines of the economy. The country looks attractive to other people. So what is that threshold number that probably you have in your head, or the data has shown you that would be good? And how can we, based on the lessons you've learned, get to that threshold number? How can we encourage more entrepreneurs to get to that number?
Okay. So, it's been 1 year that I've been with Cradle. And one of the thing that the reason why I really wanted this job is for me is to bring back to the society. Okay. Just give you a little bit of experience. When I was at SAMW, so we did this Young Innovators Challenge, and at that time, it was back in 2016, and nobody knows what innovation was. People like and forget about startups. Only small group of people knows about startups, and suddenly we reach out to these 200 kids. All over Malaysia. We even charter bus loads of kids from Sabah rural areas. Teach them design thinking, teach them about addressing problem statements, teaching them how to pitch. So I've seen a student who couldn't say a word, at the beginning of the camp. So we put them in a hotel, 5 locations all over Malaysia. And suddenly these kids, after the 5-day camp, say they want to be a startup. And we had a number of startup founders to come and give a talk. So that really inspired them, So when I got this job, and like you said, Cradle is Cradle, So you're trying to build more entrepreneurs, people who never thought that they could either, they've never had a work experience, or there's someone like, Azran, who ex-McKinsey, ex-corporate, who wants to be in startups. Now, we want to reach out to everyone that you can be a startup, but how do you do that? So just to let you know, so after SAMW, I actually wanted to set up a startup, and yeah. So I had a website, I had a company, I had a service, So I had Rajesh Nair as my mentor, because I dealt with him, and I wanted to. And that was also led me to do this postgraduate course at Oxford University, because they 90% of my cohort students are startup, or they wanted to leave the corporate world to become a startup. And do you know how difficult it is? I tried to Google how to set up a startup in Malaysia. It's almost impossible. We've got all this everywhere, and this was like about 4 years ago.
Only 4 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, only 4 years ago, like it's almost crazy. But because I was studying in the UK, so I started to Google how to set up startup in the UK. It's so easy. Everything is there. All the tools, how to do a business plan, how to pitch, who do you reach out to, and I used to be married to an entrepreneur, and I'm married to an entrepreneur. And, more than 50% of the time, if you're a business owner, you have to multitask. You have to do different things. You're the CFO, come tea lady, come driver, come, chief operating officer, and you need to build a business. So how can we, in addition to giving funding, make it as easy as possible for the founders so that they can concentrate to build their business, to build their startups, and not to, okay, what do I do if I have a tax problem? What do I do? If it's like, we're trying to do that, and we're trying to gather as much as possible, people who can support the founders. And I think this is what we need. You look at the efficiency of building a business here in Malaysia, it's one of the most inefficient, in the world. You all know that. You go to Singapore, it's just so easy to build a business, so why can't we have it here? So this is one of the things that I'm trying to, the last couple of months, I've been gathering talks and feedbacks, from various startups. They said, oh, they would love it, if, I'm not saying that Cradle will do it, could we partner with, various parties so that we can build more startups that survive and not being distracted by things that they shouldn't be distracted,
I think building more startups, right, or the capacity of the founding team, right, of course, is important. And in that sense, I mean, to me, one of the best programs that Cradle runs is the CGP, Coach and Grow. And you bring in entrepreneurs and spend it's a serious 6-month program, and the results, which we have DNA has run many times, are there for all to see. So it's a fantastic. I think I've gone on record to say it's probably the best C-level intervention program in Southeast Asia. Forget about Malaysia. But yet now there's no visibility of whether it'll carry on or not. And when a program like that comes to an end, I think they're just finishing the cohort. I'm hoping for a press release to come soon. Is that decision up to you, or will you then recommend to to your board, say, this is a program with the data there, right? We should carry on, or you want to evolve it to something else? Because I see, you look at you let the alumni talk to you about that, not Renuka and Dr. Siva or Johan. you let the customers, right, talk about it, and it's amazing. So what is the fate of a program record? That is end now, and the last 1 month ago I checked, there was no visibility whether it carry on. So because that's capacity building and making them better entrepreneurs, better leaders, right?
Yeah. So the thing about Coach and Grow, that you're right, is we're gonna have the graduation soon in next month.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been getting reports, and you're absolutely right. So it's something that we would love to continue, but at the moment, also based on a report that was done 2 years ago, the decision was for Cradle just to concentrate on grants. So, and because of that, our funding is restricted to just giving out grants. So this is something that, we are working with, and the good thing about, what I like about this job is that, I have fantastic, other CEOs that I work very closely with within Domestic. So we're coming out, with some, and together with MDEC as well. So we're coming out to see, so the program doesn't necessarily have to come through us. So we are going to, come out with some sort of a, and as you know, Mosty is coming up with the startup roadmap at the moment. In fact, this afternoon I was supposed to have a meeting with them. So I think from there, then they're going to make a decision who's best to do what. So until we get that study, then we know whether or not Cradle's going to take on that role, or whether it's to be taken by someone else.
Because that is
of course, But of course, Cradle would love to do that, but because we've been sort of hold to be a funding agency, so that was taken out from our mandate for now. But it all depends on the findings of the of the startup roadmap that is driven by Mosty at the moment.
Marcella, so lessons learned for you. Thanks for explaining that. So what lessons have you learned? What do you find works? What doesn't work?
What for the ecosystem?
For in terms of the startup ecosystem, what works in terms of building and supporting companies, and what doesn't work that you have found yourself?
And hold on, Rafiza, hold on. Before you answer that question, I think this would be a nice time to bring Azran on as well, because I think that it's a good discussion about that. Let's bring Azran on about this, and let's hear Rafiza answer that question from Karan, because I haven't thought about it as well.
Before you answer, I need to apologize to everyone, because honestly, this show should have been done on the road with the three of you running and me on my bicycle, right, asking questions and recording this, because Rafiza's Twitter account says that she's a fitness freak and training for the London Marathon. I said, goodness me, with Azran there and with you, I know you're a runner. So Nigesh,
we did the Sydney one together. We did the Sydney one together. Remember, Azran? Oh, really? That was great, right? Wow. Yeah,
2016.
Yeah. Of course, he was at the finishing line. He was already showering. I'm only halfway through. So he's more of a sprinter. I'm more of a real turtle. So it's a big difference. And of course, we always bump into each other at Hartamas. So he'll be like, So
Cool. But anyway, I apologize for this show not being in the right context. It should have been on the road running.
Next time after post-COVID.
Okay, so carry on. Nigesh, you were saying something then.
No, to the question that you asked just now, like lesson learned so far.
So for me, number years back, 10 years back, there was only one organization that does startups mainly. So it's very easy for startups, they talk about startup ecosystem, they just go to Cradle, And to me, it is amazing that we have a lot of players now. Don't get me wrong. To me, it is at a stage where it has evolved. And as many ecosystem players are in the ecosystem, is the better. But there's also a set of confusions, like who's doing what. Like the first few months that I came in, they always ask like, okay, where are you from? Cradle. Okay. What's the difference between you and Cradle? You and Magic, or you and MDEC. What does MDEC do? What does Cradle do? So I think if we can be in the player where they know they want something, they go to, instead of asking around. We have startups that go to 5 different agencies. So I think that is something that we are working on at Mosty. so that they have a centralized platform. So I think they've started off with eDana, so that all the data, all the systems, so that we have access to, say, for example, if they are currently at MathCap or, so I think that's if we have that, that will be so fantastic, because then at least we have data. Azran talk about data, because at the moment we don't have that one central platform. So so all the agencies are working on that, together, leading by mostly, yes.
Okay, so but within your own role, what do you find doesn't work? Yeah, you've tried, hasn't worked. And then Azran, you can jump in also. Sorry, what do you find is not working that you all are trying, or you have not come across that yet? Yeah.
No, because you know what, the last 6 months, in my first 6 months that I came in, as you know, because of the pandemic, I came in. In fact, up to date, I've never been in the same room with my entire staff. I've never seen them all in one room. It's either 1/3 of it, because so the first 6 months, we launched our Ignite and Accelerate on the 17th of June. And because we get budget from MOF, right?
Yeah.
We need to get all that approved by the 2nd of December. So imagine, and we have to go through like close to 500, applications, shortlisted with, like I remember, I didn't give you a hard time, right? So so pitching sessions. And at that time as well, we lost a number of people. When I came in, a lot of people have left Cradle. So we were like struggling, hiring people, making sure that, all our startups get their money in time. So we've set up KPI, because they're all screaming, they want their money. So now the KPI to my disbursement, that, within 7 working days, if they've given all their documentation, the money should be in the bank account. So we've, that's the thing that we were trying to do. So within, that span of 2 months, 3 approval meetings, we approved 32 startups, because we need to do that by 2nd of December. If we don't do that, any uncommitted, we have to return to MOF. So, our team we were even doing approval meetings on Sunday. Because we have to. And then at the same time, we were asked to do this My Hackathon. Imagine hackathon nationwide, 6 locations. We've got like close to 2,000 registration, shortlisted, 36 winners, all within. And because it's again by government, you've got to do that by end of December. So it was a crazy 5 months, from all of us. We did, I up until now, I didn't have time to breathe,
Wow.
And at the same time, we need to launch our KPI, because, people were doing different things, and we managed to get that out. But before the end of the year for 2021, going to and fro MOF, and mostly to get funding, we want more funding and things like that. So, and what I learned about it is that, my people need to continue to be motivated. So I spend, 1/3 of my time coaching, mentoring, guiding my people, giving them a lot of motivations. I've not yet to use Azran's apps, but,
Not yet.
not yet, or for me, or for my staff, but the motivation, because, for them, they're dealing with a lot of startups, going through difficult times. So, and for me, and so yesterday we made the announcement of our results and everything. So everyone was just, passion now, and as you know, they've had through a difficult 2 years time. And for me, my main priority is to lift up the spirits of my staff. So that's what I've been doing. I've been busy doing that, and to me, that's the only way for us, for Cradle, to serve the startup ecosystem.
Right.
I can't do it alone.
Also, sorry, when you talk about senior people, I think some senior people, when I did the MDEC story, that a bunch of senior people left MDEC. Some people told me, hey bro, same thing going on at Cradle. A new CEO came in, untested, unproven, and then a very dominating chairman was micromanaging. Even apparently, you all have to wear uniforms that Yvonne Chia said you all have to wear some corporate uniform, which people
that's
are
rubbish.
making. Yes, sir.
I don't know who you get your news from. I like, can you please check your data, right?
Are you
She's never
corroborating
done
your
that,
sources or not?
like
What
she's
is
like,
this?
in
So no
fact,
corporate uniform, no corporate uniform.
no, of course not. Of course not. They can wear anything they want, like as long as decent, So of course not. No, Dato Yvonne Chia has been amazing. She doesn't micromanage us. Of course, the first few months, she wants to know information because she wants to learn about, what's wrong with that. If you take over a company, don't you want to know about the company? She is Dato Yvonne, right? So she wants to know, but once you've earned her trust, she let you go.
Right.
So I don't know. I think I don't know where you get your news from. Of course, the first 6 months, like she just wants to learn about the company. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, you
So,
mean
Karam.
first 6 months when your first 6 months, right? Not her first 6
Her
months.
first 6 months. Her first 6 months, she was asking a lot of people, but rightfully, that's what everyone would do, when they first start out of a company. They want to be on top of things, So yeah.
I think some people still just probably the one that I talk to just don't like you, then if they're telling me these kind of things, but I haven't written a story about it, right? I'm only asking you. You
It's
didn't have to read
okay.
about it.
It's okay.
Okay,
My job, I just want to concentrate on my purpose. It's not for people to like me. They have their own opinion. So yeah.
Right.
So this is where I have to say, Karam, foot in mouth kind of thing. You want to like slowly take out because corroborate sources. But I've got a question. I've got a question for Azran because when Rafiza was talking about it, it kind of came to my mind, and it goes probably with something you're trying to do with the app. And I wanted to get your point of view. Like when she's talking just now, it just got to me that are we trying to do a lot more these days, especially when we are sitting in front of a computer most of the time, compared to when we were physically moving around? Because when we're physically moving around, we're constrained by how much time we need to move to a place, how much time we need to take to do something physically. But nowadays, it seems like whether it's entrepreneurs, and you just told us something in the private chat, the entrepreneurs worry every day, therefore we lose hair. There you go. So is it
I
the
also
case?
lost hair. That's why I cover my hair. You cannot see that I got no hair. Okay.
Very, very good. So is it a case that you feel, or do you see this happening where we are trying to do a lot more things, a lot more faster these days? And is it the expectation right now as well?
On one hand, it is, but I think the way we execute matters. So what I try to do is compartmentalize my focus. So some days and some times of days are for short-term things like making sure there's payroll enough for the next month. But I need to allocate different times of days to focus on a 6, 12, 24-month horizon. Because the problem is when you try to mix the two, you're trying to do too many things, everything gets so garbled and you become unfocused and you lose concentration. So I try to compartmentalize my week to be able to focus on different time horizons.
Right. And that's important to everybody who's listening, because I feel it as well. And that practice that Azran spoke of is important, and compartmentalizing goes as far as even if you feel you need to compartmentalize time for yourself, that's important. That helps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got one last question for the both of y'all because we're reaching time as well. And this goes to that whole entrepreneur mindset that we have. I have a podcast that I run, and I was speaking to two people who are in this entrepreneur space. One is a Western fellow who's in the States, and another one is Willem House, who's in South Africa. And both of them mentioned the same exact thing. Entrepreneurs are those who want to save the world, right? And they work around that kind of mentality. They want to save the world, and they go out there with this maybe rose-tinted glasses, wanting to do something great for the world. But to both of y'all, do you think it's a case that entrepreneurs need to adopt more of a business owner mindset? Because it's not just a case of saving the world, right? If you don't run your business, if you don't make money for your business, if your business cannot function, it wouldn't work. What do you think about that? Do you think entrepreneurs should adopt more of a business owner mindset, or is there a completely different way to look at it? Maybe let's start with Azran first.
Well, I don't think there's a fundamental difference in those views, because I think what's really important is focusing on the right problem. It needs to be a real problem, but it also needs to be a big enough problem so that there's, economics in that, right? So if you pick the wrong problem, you won't be able to create a
Yeah.
sustainable business. But the problem is important rather than falling in love with your product or falling in love with your solution.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to be able to throw away what you've built every few months as long as you're focused on the right problem. And if you find the right problem, I think the business model follows.
Right.
And the
Rafiza-
best way I
sorry,
can
sorry.
throw that to you is think about WhatsApp, $22 billion of revenue.
Indeed. And Rafiza, what do you think about that?
No, I agree with Azran. I mean, like when Facebook was first thought of, it's not about making money. It's about connecting people. Building a community. And it's the same thing when Uber was first set up. It's again, the money was not the first priority. I wanna become a millionaire. That's not they how can they make traveling safe, and how they can create more jobs. So those are the things. Like again, if the problem statement and is something that it's what the people want,
Right.
the commercial aspects of it will come. You need some sort of a commercial aspects of it because because we're not working for charity. At the end of the day, we've got people to pay salary, people got to pay bills, who's going to pay for the rent, how do you sustain a business? So there needs to have a combination of that. But most of these startup founders that I came off, yes, of course, money, there is some motivation of it, but it was not the main thing, yeah.
Okay,
And
just one more quick question for both of you. Azran first. What do you think of My Digital, the blueprint?
Oh no, he had
Or
to ask
maybe
this
a
question.
overall or a particular aspect of it, and also then to Rafiza. And Rafiza, I want to know whether you've been having teh tarik, virtually with Fabian or not. But okay, Azran first. What do you think of My Digital?
I've been focused on my fundraising round the last 9 months, Karam. I'm not familiar with the details.
Right answer. You passed the micro test. Okay, man. Now, I know. No, look, Azran is going to totally disconnect himself from the grid, in the last week of this month to just relax and detox. Hopefully, at some point towards the end of that detox, you can just have a look at My Digital and see what's going on there and where what you can play a role and how you can make it better. So, okay, great.
Azran, if you don't tell Karam because he'll come after you and ask you questions.
Yeah. Okay. When I first, again, similar to Azran, when in my first month of my Cradle job, I didn't have time to have teh tarik with anyone. So I'm not so sure whether having teh tarik with me is on top of Fabian's list, But, to me, it is great, and of course, it's like another blueprint. The question is, everyone needs to play a role to make sure that it is successful. And then, so we studied it, and then, at Cradle, we did have a conversation, and in fact, we are coming up with some targets. So that's again, this is driven by Mosti. How can the agencies under Mosti support the success of My Digital Blueprint? Yeah, so we've got that. Yeah,
very good.
It's on our plate now. Yeah.
Thanks
I
for
look
that.
forward
Thanks
to
for
your
that.
update also, right? Once the Mosti announces this, and also, your glasses. Hey, where are my glasses? I need to wear glasses, man.
Okay, while he's distracted, I better do this. So we've already actually reached 7:03. But I also want to thank all our viewers out there. So for both Azran and Rafiza, we're actually looking at the metrics. We have actually really, really high retention today. So maybe it's because both of y'all are here, but I want to really
I
thank
think
all
it's
the people.
Azran.
No, I think they want to see me wearing my shades at the end. I told you, I need to go and quickly get my shades.
So on that note, I really want to thank all our
have your
viewers.
shades with you, Karamjit,
Next week
Yeah,
onwards,
because-
I just wear my ridiculous looking. Okay, I just look this first. Okay.
All right. So a quick one. So if you guys want to reach out to Azran at any one point in time to just ask him any questions, if he can reply, if he's not busy running around as an entrepreneur, or if he's not relaxing, you can reach out to him on his LinkedIn. You can find him Azran on LinkedIn. Maybe his full name, if you can't find it, that is Azran Osman-Rani, right? And
be persistent. Be persistent, because Azran is very low profile in that, but he's an absolute mega influencer on LinkedIn. Okay, I mean his post has just off the charts. off the charts. I'm not exaggerating at all. So please be persistent. If he doesn't respond to you, keep being politely persistent. And that's the hallmark of any entrepreneur, right? Never say no. So keep being persistent. Okay.
All right.
Just a tip for anyone.
And Rafiza, if anybody wants to reach out to you to talk to you, what would be the best way to do that? Would it be on your LinkedIn?
Well, yeah, LinkedIn as well. Although I don't check my LinkedIn all the time, but you can reach out to Cradle Facebook. So
All right.
yeah.
Okay,
Someone will connect to me. Yeah.
great. So reach out to Cradle Facebook to get to Rafiza. If you want to reach her on LinkedIn, be warned that she may not be available at that point in time.
I've still got about 100 over emails that I've not read. Crazy, yeah.
Got Saturday night and Friday night also now.
That's not supposed to be to go through emails.
Yeah,
Karam.
I've got to go
No.
through the startup roadmap
I totally disagree
I've got
with
to
you,
go-
Nigesh. I
I've got
disagree,
to go through
Nigesh.
the startup
Saturday-
roadmap for tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah. No. Weekend, when you're working in an agency to help start, look, Azran can tell you any entrepreneur is 24/7, 366, not 365. They've magically found another day in the calendar, right? So entrepreneurship is like that. And when you're in an agency to help startups, you also have to literally match that work pace, because there's so much anxiety and angst and frustration and pent up energy that needs an outlet. So I'm sure Rafiza has already known she works Saturday, Sunday. So, and that is expected actually. So Nigesh, totally bad of you to say, weekends. No, that is like 10 years ago.
Karam,
I do not agree that weekends are to. Maybe you can carve out 8 hours in the weekend to relax, but not the 24 hours of the weekend for sure. I may sound harsh, but I absolutely believe in this.
You see, and this Karam will not understand this situation. I'm trying to hide it that they work in weekends, because I work in weekends too, but people don't need to know that, right? Because they want quiet time to go through emails or things that they got to do.
Okay. Sorry, I got agitated there.
Exactly.
I know Azran is non-stop. You and me also to some extent, and Rafiza has to be also to match the pace of the ecosystem she's helping. That's all.
Right. And Rafiza, Roshan did leave you a question, so maybe if you want to answer him later on, you can. He actually left this question where he wants to understand what's Cradle's burning priority at this time. You may have answered some of them just now while you spoke, but if you feel you want to answer him a bit more, you can. All right. And so I guess let's wrap things up as well. I do want to let everybody know, especially the show is brought to you by Necole. And if you have an organization which needs a learning development solution, reach out to us. Go to necole.tech and book your demo session, and we'll get back to you. And of course, don't forget Digital News Asia, all the digital tech news happening here in Malaysia and maybe some places around the world, important ones. Go check it out. The pick of the week that Karam mentioned is up on Digital News Asia as well, so go read about that. And I kind of want to leave everybody with one final note, which actually was mentioned by both Azran and Rafiza together. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a startup owner, a business owner, absolutely. I mean, you can like what you do, you can like the product you create, but don't fall too much in love with it that you attach to it. Focus on the problem that is out there. And if you focus on the problem, you will find a market space. If you focus on that, and you will find the commercial aspects of it. So on that note, I'd like to say bye, everybody. And thank you so much to Azran and also Rafiza for spending time all the way now to 7:08 with us and with all our viewers out there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, you both. And to Karam, always being passionate, always being the Bayi fellow who's always going to ask the hard questions and sometimes also shoot himself in the foot. But ladies and gentlemen, it's Karamjit Singh from DNA and myself here from Leadonomics Digital. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rafiza. Thank you, Azra.